Welcome back everyone, it's David, and this week's video will be heavily focused on the AFC North. That's where all of Week 14's big games came from, including on Monday night, which was simultaneously the best and shittiest game of the year. But more on that later. If you like what you see here, be sure to subscribe and follow Lingo Sports on Instagram. Starting with number 5, the Raiders' defense is broken. No other way to put it. They made the right move and a long overdue one when they fired Paul Gunter. But that's not going to fix their issues overnight. This is a team that gave up over 200 yards on the ground to the Jets. How is that possible? And they didn't fare much better against the Colts, who torched them for 212 rushing yards. If they spiral out of control and miss the playoffs again like they did last year, you'll hear some people talk about if the Raiders should move on from Derek Carr. But he's not the problem. In fact, the Raiders' offense has been great all year. They're the only reason they're not getting blown out every game because of this paper-thin defense. It hasn't been for a lack of trying. The Raiders clearly know they have issues on defense and have tried to fix that in recent years by drafting guys like Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby, and Jonathan Abram. They've also spent big on linebackers, but so far, Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski ain't it. If only they had some sort of disruptive force at the linebacker position that could swing games on his own. Now, I'm just spitballing here, but a player like Khalil Mack would be perfect for them. And sure, the Bears won this week, but their focus is on next season as well. Maybe they might look towards selling off some pieces. I made this Photoshop of Mack in a Raiders jersey. Let me know what you guys think. He could really go a long way towards fixing the Raiders' defensive woes. All kidding aside, there's no shame in losing to the Colts, but this team deserves to be on a 4-game losing streak and on the outside of the playoff picture. They owe it to all those die-hard Las Vegas fans who have ridden with the team since day one to get their act together and make some big changes to the defense in the offseason. Number 4, the Saints need Drew Brees back. ASAP. This isn't meant to take away from Jalen Hurts, who had an astonishing first start and deserves all the credit that he's getting, but the Saints surely win that game with Brees. After slipping up against the Eagles, they've lost their grip on the number 1 seed to the Packers. And they have a date with the Chiefs coming up. With the 1 seed being the only one getting a first-round bye this year, winning it has never been more crucial. Despite the great season the Saints have had, it could come to an end in a flash if they slip to number 2 and end up facing a 7 seed that's on a roll, like the Vikings, who seem to always have their number in the playoffs. Ever since Taysom Hill's first start, where he looked great, his performances have been pretty putrid. He barely threw for more yards than the Broncos' practice squad wide receiver. He had a bad case of the fumbles against the Falcons, and against the Eagles, he was sacked 5 times. Now, he doesn't deserve all the blame for that. The offensive line was poor, and Sean Payton should have let him focus more on running the ball against the Eagles' poor run defense. But this was Hill's first time facing a deficit, and he didn't inspire much confidence. While it makes a lot of sense to not rush Brees back and wait until he's fully recovered, they may not have a choice after this loss. They simply cannot face the Chiefs with Taysom Hill under center. Their playoff hopes may depend on it. Number 3, Chase Young will turn the Washington football team into a Super Bowl contender. It was only a year ago that the 49ers turned around a 4-12 record and were just a few minutes away from winning the Super Bowl. There were a lot of factors that went into that huge turnaround, but perhaps the most significant one was drafting Nick Bosa. He gave their D-line a huge facelift in addition to having enormous production of his own. We're seeing the same thing happen with Bosa's fellow college teammate Chase Young in Washington. Their defense is the biggest reason they're leading the NFC East, and Young has looked like a world beater, especially against the 49ers when he had 6 tackles, a sack, 2 QB hits, a tackle for loss, 2 batted passes, a forced fumble, and this 47-yard touchdown. Look at him just burst for the huge sack. That is a grown man tackle. Watch him force this fumble while simultaneously snatching this poor guy's soul. Poor Nick Mullins never stood a chance. Meanwhile, Chase Young's mom's reaction to his touchdown is the most heartwarming thing you'll see all day.
What'd you think of the touchdown today?
They said, what did you think of the touchdown tonight?
Oh my gosh, I'm just so worn out. It was just outstanding. I couldn't even believe it. I was in shock. And I said, he knows how to pick that ball up and not fall on it. And he got it and kept trucking.
Despite how good the FT have looked in recent weeks, no one's suggesting they're a Super Bowl contender this year. They're still 6-7 and in the worst division of all time. They still need to improve their roster, most notably getting a long-term solution to QB. Carson Wentz, perhaps? Nah, I'm just kidding. But with Young in tow, this team will be a force for a long time. This 4-game winning streak is giving us a glimpse of what the football team looks like when they realize their full potential. Their path to Super Bowl contention may be happening a lot sooner than we think. Coming in at number 2, because, of course, Lamar Jackson's bathroom break will be what defines this Ravens season, although time will tell if it'll be viewed positively or negatively. At face value, it was an extraordinary sight seeing Lamar Jackson going from taking a number 2, then returning from the tunnel in time for the 2-minute drill, then hitting Hollywood Brown, who had a bad case of the drops, on a touchdown pass before going for 2, and then seeing the game end on, wait for it, 2 points. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. But let's look at 2 notable examples of bathroom breaks in the past. Everyone, even Lamar, couldn't help themselves comparing his situation to Paul Pierce in the 2008 finals.
No, I was cramping. I ain't putting Paul Pierce. I didn't put Paul Pierce. I was cramping.
Camera showed Pierce in a wheelchair, seemingly leaving Game 1 injured, only for him to suddenly return and lead the Celtics to a win. Of course, we now know that injury was a load of shit, since Pierce said so himself.
I have a confession to make. Whoa. I just had to go to a bathroom.
A number 1 or a
I had
number
to go
2?
to the bathroom.
But why did you need a wheelchair to get to the bathroom?
It was that bad.
It was something went down. I had to go to the restroom.
Oh.
There's just something so funny about seeing Celtics fans give a standing ovation to someone for coming back from the bathroom. Lamar's cramp gate also caught the attention of Roberto Luongo. Back in 2007, he had to make an emergency bathroom break in between periods, but by the time he was finished, the first overtime had already started, and Danny Sabrin had to fill in goal. His confession was something.
What was up with that bathroom break during the playoffs? Bad shrimp or?
I can't divulge my secret, but let's just say I had a little bit of a stomach problem.
There was no thunderous ovation for Luongo when he returned. If anything, his teammates were too rattled by what had just happened. The goal he let in was Charmin ultra soft, and the Ducks went on to win the cup that year. So those are 2 extreme examples of how a bathroom break can help or hurt a team. How the Ravens perform the rest of the season will tell us if this will have a positive or negative impact, but the fact that they rallied to win a huge divisional game can only be a good sign. And finally, number 1, the Steelers are going one and done in the playoffs. This team is far too reminiscent of the 2019 Patriots. This is a team that's built on their strong defense, and like last year's Pats, they have a very good case for Defensive Player of the Year in TJ Watt. But offensively, they started to sputter. Their quarterback is showing his age, and their running game is being absolutely stifled. And after looking like they would cruise to the number 1 seed, they're starting to lose their grip on playoff positioning and might be forced to play in the first round. A lot of the focus has been on the Steelers' running game, but Roethlisberger's not doing the offense any favors. This marked the 4th straight game he's thrown an interception, and this pick 6 was borderline offensive. Of course, it doesn't help that his receivers have a bad case of the drops. Deontay Johnson dropped 2 passes to start the game, then was barely seen the rest of the way. Their defense kept giving them a short field in the first half, and they only got 1 touchdown to show for it. As for their running game, the Steelers are a long way from the old days of Jerome Bettis and Le'Veon Bell. James Conner returned from the COVID list and put up a whopping total of 18 yards on 10 rush attempts. That ain't going to cut it. And if the running game is non-existent, it forces Roethlisberger to throw checkdowns instead, and that doesn't help anyone. It's totally fair to pin their struggles on having to play 3 games in 12 days, and provided COVID doesn't have anything to say about it, their schedule will be normal from here on out. But if they don't start turning things around now, there's going to be even more cause for concern. 2020 has been a wild one. If the Steelers draw the Dolphins in the first round, which they would if things stand, we shouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins prevail.